The coast of Alaska includes some of the most treacherous waterways in the world. It's no surprise that ships go down. But some of these wrecks are shrouded in mystery. And that includes the biggest of all, the Princess Sophia.
The sinking of the SS Princess Sophia is without doubt the worst maritime tragedy in Alaskan history.
It's a huge tragedy in the Pacific Northwest. It took rich and poor. It took everybody.
It's a long-forgotten maritime disaster, unknown and unexplained.
This is one of the big mysteries of the Alaska Triangle.
The sinking of the SS Princess Sophia in 1918 was the greatest loss of life in a single event in Alaskan history. Yet to this day, the reason why it went down in the southern corner of the triangle remains an enigma. Bjorn Dila is an Alaskan writer who's researched the history of the miners during that era.
Alaska 1918, there's still people making a living mining, many of who spend spring and summer in Alaska, and then in the wintertime come and travel by steamer down south. And one of these steamers was the Princess Sophia.
The embarkation point for the steamers was Skagway, a small gold rush port on the south coast.
It's late October in Skagway. It's the last run of the year to get prospectors, miners, other folks out of the interior of Alaska. There's no road in or out. So the Princess Sophia is the last chance. You're stuck if you don't. You're in Alaska until May, June. So you have all these people that are just kind of fleeing to Skagway.
One man who knows these waters well is British author Anthony Dalton.
It was a Canadian Pacific steamship. She was a passenger and cargo ship sailing between Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and Skagway, Alaska. In October 1918, Princess Sophia was at the dock in Skagway. There was a flurry of activity getting her loaded. 353 people were legally on board, plus 24 horses, 1 dog, and there were some stowaways. Mostly the passengers would have been men heading south for the winter back to Vancouver. They left Skagway and headed down the Lynn Canal.
At over 2,000 feet deep, the 90-mile Lynn Canal is the deepest fjord in North America and one of the deepest and longest in the world. It's renowned for its treacherous and unpredictable weather.
From having spent a lot of time in that waterway, Lynn Canal, even on days where it is placid calm, it has gone in a matter of a couple minutes to all of a sudden you're in 2-meter high seas, 5-meter chop, no visibility, snow all over the deck, icy spray, and you're fighting for your life to get out of there.
As it made its way down the fjord, the Princess Sophia was hit by an unusually fierce storm with winds of 80 to 90 miles per hour.
80-mile-per-hour winds in northern Lynn Canal is essentially hell on earth.
The men who had been digging for gold in Alaska were now under attack by Alaska's forces of nature. But none of this should have been a problem for the Princess Sophia. Her maiden voyage had been just 6 years before, and she had sailed the Atlantic, rounding the hazardous Cape Horn.
This is a big boat we're talking about. This boat's designed to take terrible weather.
But for some unknown reason, the Princess Sophia strayed off course.
Around 2 o'clock in the morning, traveling at 12 knots, which was full speed, Princess Sophia was 1 mile away from where she should be, and she ran straight up on Vanderbilt Reef.
The Vanderbilt Reef was well known to the captain. It was like a rocky outcrop just slightly sticking out of the water. There were gale force winds, but still, the ship should have handled this. It had a double steel hull, unlike the previous wooden ships that were around at that time. So why the ship ended up on the reef a mile off course is a big mystery. It's almost like the elements were conspiring to bring down this ship. It's a really strange story.
The ship was stuck, but it was low tide. There was still no need to panic.
The captain decided there was nothing they could do, just wait for the tide to come up more. He really felt the ship would float off.
Theoretically, you refloat and you're able to limp into port and not go down. So they wait and they wait 40 hours and the storm never lessens.
In fact, the storm worsened. But still, the ship should have been safe. But later that night, the unthinkable happened. The ship suddenly turned on the reef.
When the ship started to pirouette, I believe terror would have been a very large part of the emotion on board, not just for the passengers, but also for the crew, because the sound alone would have been really frightening.
The steel hull tore open, and water came rushing in.
It's recorded that the boiler exploded, oil went everywhere. And then the boat properly then sank.
The last message from the radio operator is a good indication. He called for help and said, "We are moving, and then it was gone. There was nothing.
One of the big questions about this whole story is the fact that it appears, even though it took half an hour for the ship to actually sink, people stayed in their cabins in pitch blackness. So why on earth would they do that?
Others entered the freezing, oil-covered water, some putting their trust in the life preservers.
Those who didn't have life jackets on would have gone down with the ship, been sucked in. When a ship goes down, it tends to create almost a vacuum, and if you're within that area, you're pulled down into it. Those who weren't sucked in by the ship would have drowned in the waves and, of course, from the effects of the viscous bunker oil.
So all in all, 353 people died, potentially more that weren't accounted for, all hands, except for a dog.
One dog, the lone survivor, an English setter, found exhausted and covered in oil, washed ashore 2 days after the sinking. 180 bodies were also washed ashore. The rest, up to 200 bodies, unaccounted for.